I had the epiphany that if I stay here, it's so easy to get stuck. And I would wake up at 60 and go, I haven't done anything meaningful with my life. And that's a life wasted. Do you know what? The first podcast I ever did, I forgot to turn the other person's mic on. So only one mic was picking us both up.
Nice. And listen, on that bombshell, welcome to the podcast. I am sat with Grace Hardy. Introduce yourself.
I'm Grace Hardy. I am an accountant, and I started off by getting an apprenticeship when I was 18. I qualified as an accountant at 20, and then decided to leave my corporate job at 21 and start my own business.
I have a question. Can you qualify that quickly in 2 years?
Yes.
Or were you just really good at what you do?
I wasn't that great. I was okay. Yeah, you can qualify that quickly. So I went down the AAT route, which is an exam board. And I qualified 9 days before my 21st birthday.
I'm already impressed. So you are... What I like about you more than anything else is the bravery in starting your business in such a big, massive corporate world at a young age. And that is your unique selling point, like you said. And you're a female, which makes it a bit more difficult, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think I wouldn't necessarily say I was brave. I think I was stupid in the fact that I quit my corporate job with zero plan. I just realised, I had the epiphany that if I stay here, it's so easy to get stuck. And I would wake up at 60 and go, I haven't done anything meaningful with my life. And that's a life wasted. For me personally, that's the way that I think about it. And so I was like, okay, I've qualified. I want to do something else. I don't know what it is. I want to go travelling because I never had a gap year. I went straight from sixth form to corporate. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go travelling. Quit my job, handed in my letter of resignation. And then was like, I'm going to go to Bali, find myself and like go see waterfalls or do whatever you do.
Which sounds amazing, by the way.
Yeah, until I realised it was rainy season that I couldn't go. So I had 3 months until I could go to Bali, and I was like, what do I do with all this time? I could go back to working in hospitality or retail or anything just to save some money before I go. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm a qualified accountant. Wouldn't it be so funny if I just started a business and then I'll close it before I go to Bali? But it'll be a nice thing to do in the interim.
Why did you want to wait? Why only for 3 months? Just to fill the gap in your schedule?
Yeah. So I was like, I'll do a couple of tax returns, make some money, maybe do some hospitality. And I knew at some point I wanted to start my own business. I just didn't know what it was in. And so I was like, this is a good opportunity to like see if I like it. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, then I'm not bothered. And so I think that I didn't need to have any bravery because I had zero expectations. I didn't think it would work. And I was really excited to go to Bali.
Okay, so here's the kicker. What made you stay past that 3-month period?
I realised at that point I was getting a lot of clients and different opportunities that were literally so amazing. And I was like, it would be really naive of me to stop what I'm doing right now and go away. I could build this into something actually quite amazing and go to Bali and work there instead.
And for the listeners, how many months have you been active now?
It will be 7 months at the end of June.
Nice. The world has changed. The world of marketing has changed. And I first discovered your account on TikTok. Not because I needed accounting services, but just because like it came up on my For You page, and what I recognized straight away as a comparison to me and you is two people that are building something.
Yeah.
You an accountancy firm and kind of like a brand for yourself, and me a podcast and like a brand for myself. So I recognized that instantly through your posts. And then like did we speak in December?
Honestly, I have no idea what
I think it was shortly after coming back from Paris or something like that. My point is, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, is I've seen you grow more and more. Growth is often sometimes an obstacle for a lot of people. So share how you're growing on social media.
I think it's very much trial and error. So before I started a business, didn't really have social media. Had an Instagram for all my friends at like secondary school, and that was that. And I just post pictures of myself when I go on holiday.
Yeah.
And that's the extent of it. And I had a TikTok that I never posted on and rarely used because I thought the platform was quite toxic.
Because it is.
Yeah, preach. But my hot take is actually I think LinkedIn is the most toxic platform.
Explain.
Because everyone's sitting there gloating about all their achievements. And do you know what? 9 times out of 10, they're great achievements. Like, well done to everyone. But if you sit there and you scroll on LinkedIn, you always think, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. All these people are out here achieving incredible things and I'm sat here in bed eating a Wagamama's. Whereas like on TikTok, you very much know that that is staged. Whereas on LinkedIn, it doesn't feel as staged because they're actual achievements.
Yeah, because they'll have like the company attached to the post and all of these other things. So are you basically saying that on LinkedIn, people only show you like, I don't know, the good side of the corporate world or something, and they don't actually show you the process? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so a lot of people, when you have LinkedIn, you basically just post when you've got a new job or a promotion or something like that. That is basically what LinkedIn is used for. And a lot of people that create content on LinkedIn or put posts, they're mostly just achievements. It's very rare that you find someone who actually opens up about how their journey has been. Or it's always a ridiculous story like, oh, I saw a dog on the tube and it reminded me about X, Y, Z. And then it turns into a very corporate-y post.
Yeah, you're making me feel very glad about not using LinkedIn. I feel like LinkedIn is just a glorified search engine for jobs.
I think it is. I don't use it for that personally. For me, I get a lot of opportunities off LinkedIn. So a lot of speaking opportunities, which is like really quite cool. Whereas TikTok, that's where I get my clients from.
Okay, you get TikTok. Okay, how do you know it's from TikTok?
Because I found you on TikTok.
Okay, I mean, I found you for this podcast on TikTok. So, yeah, I mean, it works. It works wonders. My last guest, or my last podcast that was uploaded, so Wild Stories of Nora, for those of you that have listened, I found her on TikTok as well. It's crazy. Like, the reach that social media gives you is, I think, unimaginable. Because everyone always says, okay, post on this and post on that and people will start following.
Yeah.
But forget the numbers. It's not about the numbers. It's the fact that actual people will become a client.
Yeah.
Or become a podcast guest. I always find that when utilized properly, social media can, how do I put this, speed up your growth.
Definitely. If I didn't have social media, I don't think my company would have grown as fast as it has.
So would you want to disclose how fast it's been growing? What are any numeric values that can be, like number of clients, not financial turnover?
Yeah, so I deal with about 40 to 50 clients at the moment.
Is that on a yearly basis?
Yeah, like monthly.
40 to 50 clients on a monthly basis. Now, layman's terms, because I'm an architect, not an accountant.
Yeah.
Does that mean that by the end of the year, for example, you have about 600 clients, or does that mean that some of them just come and go?
So I think the easiest way to describe it is some of them are on a monthly retainer and some of them are just like one-off. So they'll want their self-assessment done or their annual accounts. And so at the end of the year, who knows, because it keeps growing every month.
But if I have a limited company or I'm self-employed, is it possible for me to register some of my finances between January and March with Grace and then from March onwards with Dave or something? Do you know what I'm saying?
So you can change accountants.
Okay.
And that's absolutely fine.
Doesn't make a difference?
No.
I did not know that. I did not know that. Because usually in the building world, you don't just change architects. Once the project kind of starts. Everyone just like competes at the beginning.
Yeah.
And one gets chosen and one gets stuck with. Yeah, that's actually really interesting. So what is, for you, the general client that you get?
So it's a lot of young business owners and a lot of them are in the creative industry. So I have a couple of property clients, but most of them are creatives, which I love. But the USP is young business owners because I find that young people don't really want to go to that stocky, old, stuffy accountant. Mm-hmm. They would rather speak to someone like me where we have more in common and more things to talk about and feel like I'm not speaking down to them. We can actually have a conversation because financial education isn't taught in schools, which is such a massive issue. And so people create businesses because they're so passionate about something, not necessarily because they love taxes, unless you're me, obviously. And so they don't know anything, and it's quite scary to turn around to someone and go, I don't know how any of this works and I really need help.
Something caught my ear instantly, and you said you have a lot of creative clients. Tell me about that. So does that mean like artists, podcasters? And then how do you operate? Do you operate their finances and incomes differently to an accountant or something?
So there's so many different ones. So it's podcasts, it's artists, it's film directors, it's literally anything, like social media managers. It's very wide. But it's just looking at it from a personal basis. So there are content creators and influencers in there as well. And each separate business is very unique. So you just have to look at every business with a fresh pair of eyes and see how to go around it.
Do different businesses have different tax exemptions?
Yeah, so sometimes if you work for a production company, they have some certain tax credits. But also it's like allowable expenses are different for every single business.
Nice. I'm just getting this through my head. I'm wondering if I need to hire Grace Hardy for Azul's podcast accounting services.
Well, I do my own podcast accounts as well, because it's easy and it saves you so much money.
Look at that flex, guys. It's easy. Like all of you basic people that don't know how to balance a spreadsheet. Grace isn't having it. So, jokes aside, a lot of my listeners are around our age group. And they're up and coming. They want to start a business. They want to buy a home. And I know you have advice for that.
Yes.
You're always posting about it. But I'm not going to take your thunder. You tell us.
What would you like to know first?
I put a little question poll up on my Instagram like a few days ago. I was like, I have a financial expert in. What would you like to know? And some people actually wondered how, for example, when they start their career at 21, 23, what's the best way for them to prepare and to start preparing to buy a home?
So obviously the best thing to do is save. But in order to save, you need to learn how to budget effectively. So that can be, the general rule is 50, 30, 20. So if you've moved out of your family home, 50% of your salary can go on rent and bills, etc. 30% of it can go on needs, gym, food, all that sort of stuff. And then 20% of it should go into savings and wants. And that is basically how you budget your corporate salary. So it doesn't have to be exactly that, and you need to make sure that your budgeting is completely realistic. I've reviewed people's budgets before, and they have gone, my budget isn't working, and I go, okay, let me take a look at it. And it's because they're budgeting £50 a month to go out with friends and go for dinners and stuff, and that, for them, isn't enough money. So you need to look at your budget and make sure it's realistic. And then from that 20%, you can start saving. So you can either use something called a high interest savings account, where you put your money and it has a slightly higher interest than a normal bank.
Okay.
Or you can put it in an ISA, because when you take money out of an ISA, there's no tax on it. So there's no income tax, capital gains tax, or dividends tax.
Is ISA that one that it's 3-year period, right?
No. So it's an individual savings account, and you can open it at any time when you're over 18, or you can open a junior ISA. And you can add up to £20,000 per tax year into the ISA. There's a stocks and shares ISA, a finance innovation ISA.
Is there a housing one?
LISA, lifetime ISA.
Oh, okay. Look at these names.
I know.
I mean, it makes sense. It's catchy. And do people just download apps?
So you can download apps, or you can use different platforms. So for me personally, I have a stocks and shares ISA, and I use a platform called Vanguard, which I love and find very helpful.
Vanguard is one of the biggest trading companies in the world, right? Isn't Vanguard like... So how did Vanguard get into this?
I don't know their personal story.
It's crazy, right? Because they're gaining something from this. So Vanguard have delved into this world of saving and helping people prepare and all that type of stuff. That's interesting. But then the general ISA one, is that a government-based one?
So there's a cash ISA. So you can open that with lots of different banks as well.
Okay. Sorry, I'm not as educated in this. So maybe I'm asking questions that aren't that, I don't know, smart.
No. Because for me, the only reason I know these things is because I've worked in finance for so long. But the average person doesn't even have like basic financial literacy.
Yeah.
So you're asking the questions that everyone listening to this also doesn't know the answer to.
Yeah. You have it, guys. Grace just said none of you know anything about finance. Well, it's probably true, though. It's probably true. That's why we've tuned in for the advice. So we've all been young and we all like to splash out on money when we shouldn't do. What are the mistakes that you see most often?
So for me, I've also done this. I love a handbag. Okay, so I love a designer handbag.
What type?
Any.
Any.
I just like a pretty handbag. So I will happily go to Paris and spend a ridiculous amount of money on a nice handbag, which is something I shouldn't do because it's very irresponsible. So I now have the rule of a 24-hour ban on myself. Usually I'll see, like, it will come up on my Instagram ads, like a new handbag, and I'm like, oh my god, a new handbag, I really need it. So I put a 24-hour ban on buying anything that is above a certain amount. So that usually, by the end of the 28 hours, 24 hours even, my serotonin levels have plummeted. So now I don't want that item as much as I did in the first place, which is a very clever hack.
I've seen people use that hack for many things, actually, and I think it's a smart way of doing it. But for someone listening to this saying, nah, I want that handbag, Grace, convince me more. What's the alternative? Where can that money go instead?
That money can go in savings. It can go into your future. It can go into getting a mortgage, a deposit.
Or just like more handbags.
Or more handbags if you find a cheaper option. But it's important that you decide what you want. What does your next 5 years look like for you? And it will be completely different for everyone. So when I was in corporate, my next 5 years looked like buying a house. So I saved up money for a deposit. Now it doesn't particularly look like that because I'm self-employed and I want to go travelling. So it can change, and so you can change for that as well. So if it looks like getting a house deposit, then put your money in a high interest savings account or an ISA so it can compound and grow rather than leaving it in a bank account.
So I guess metaphorically put, it's like a recipe. If you know what you want to make, then you can prepare the ingredients for it.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people, though, don't know what they want to make when they get in the kitchen.
Very true.
So is there still something they should do? Should they live carefree?
I think that's up to everyone's individual circumstances. If you just want to live carelessly and not have any savings or an emergency fund or anything, be my guest. If that's what makes you happy, then go do it. It's not my place to tell people what to do. But if you do want to have an emergency fund, so like, for example, today, a rock hit my windscreen and now I need to get my windscreen replaced. I have an emergency fund, so yes, it's irritating that I'm going to have to spend that money, but at the same time, I've got it. And so for me, that gives me a sense of security, so I don't need to worry about those things too much. Whereas if you are living carefree and something does happen, then do you have the money for it or not?
No, that's a very good point. And life is constantly full of like little surprises. I mean, I had one late last night, you had one today. So, yeah. But the key is we're both still here grinding.
Exactly. And so for me personally, what makes me happy is that I'm financially stable. That's what makes me happy. If I'm not, I stress a lot, and I have ever since I was tiny. So at 16, I went and I got my first job so I could have my own money and pay for like my fuel for my car and my insurance and my MOT and things like that. And so having financial stability is very important to me.
What was your first car?
My first car, Ford Fiesta.
Nice. Okay, question. Now, we talked about mortgages. Staying on cars, actually, young people love cars.
Mm-hmm.
And your first car was a Ford Fiesta, which is a budget option, obviously, for a 16-year-old. What would your advice be to the extravagant young teenager or early 20s young adult that feels the need to lease out or finance out a nice German whip?
I think for me, it's more difficult because I'm not a big car fanatic.
But you understand financially it's much more expensive.
Yeah. So, for example, if you have a lot of monthly payments, when you're trying to get a mortgage and things like that, people will ask what monthly payments you have, and it's a liability in the sense that you owe money to someone. So I've always bought my cars outright because then it's mine and I don't owe money to anyone. And so that, again, is really important because when you're doing a mortgage, they'll look at all your incomings and outgoings, and they will see that car as well. Also, that car isn't yours. So if you scratch it or you crash it, then you're kind of stuffed.
Yeah, I suppose so. But also, when you own the car, it is a depreciating asset, but it's an asset nonetheless. So if Grace wanted to pay towards another car or anything else, Grace could sell the Ford Fiesta.
Exactly, but even if you get a leased car, you're still depreciating it, but you're still paying it off at full value.
Also, the interest is ridiculous on these things, right?
It's a joke.
Do you know the numbers, the figures?
No, it's different for everyone depending on your situation.
Mortgage interests are bad, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're horrible.
All interest is terrible, but that's why you have a savings account, high interest savings account, because that's where the interest can be good.
Do these saving accounts match inflation?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So you can go on websites like Money Saver Expert, and they will give you like the top 10 high interest savings accounts. And sometimes they're quite good. They're at like 6 or 7%, which is great.
So we've just had our appetizers. Now we're going in for the main meal, which is all about talking about how to start your own business. And we touched on that at the beginning, but detail it. Your steps, your vision for yourself, past the 3-month period. Yeah, take it away.
I think my journey into business was a little bit different than everyone else's, just because I did do it as a joke. And so I didn't have any concrete plans. A lot of people start sort of side hustles and create a business plan and make sure that their income matches their corporate income. And then they take the leap, they quit their corporate job and they pursue the business full time. Whereas I had already quit my corporate job and I was like, oh yeah, business. So the first thing I did was I set up my social media pages. I was very scared to do it. I didn't post my face on social media for the first 2 months of my business because I was really terrified of being judged for being a young female accountant.
To be honest, I've met a lot of accountants and none of them tend to be young and female.
I know.
They can be female, but young. You're actually right. I can see why that would be intimidating for you.
Yeah, so I thought I'll post something and then everyone's going to be like, I wouldn't trust her. And that was sort of my main worry before I did it. Then I did it and I realised it's fine. Yes, I get comments on TikTok. If you want some light entertainment, scroll through my TikTok comments. They're horrific. But that doesn't bother me because I have clients and my clients like me for me. And so I started my social media pages and I started going to networking events because when I started my business, I moved to London and I thought I really needed a secure network around me of people I could go to, especially for clients' needs like insurance, mortgage advisors, financial advisors, things like that. Just so I can be like, you can come to me, but if you need anyone, I'm the person you come to because I know X amount of people that can help you, which I think is really, really valuable. And then from there, I just started putting a lot of time into social media. And that is basically how it's grown.
Like, what about behind the scenes though? Because things have changed to an extent. So for example, the business landscape has changed a lot, especially post-COVID. Remote work is more popular than ever. And more people are running their businesses remotely. I know it, you know it, but for the listeners, what are the advantages of working remotely?
The first one I think is saving costs. So I don't have to rent an office anywhere, which is perfect for me because if I was to rent an office in London, it would cost me
an arm and a leg.
All my kidneys.
Oh, what? There's only 2, right?
Yeah, but it wouldn't just be 1, it would be 2. So all of them.
All of them, yeah.
And so I think that's a massive benefit. The other benefit is flexibility. So I can work from anywhere, which is really exciting. So although I haven't been to Bali yet, I have been on holiday. So I can take my laptop away with me and work and nothing changes, obviously, except the time zone, which is really valuable. And it gives me flexibility to sort of go out to clients and see them in person as well.
Yeah, I like that. What I like most about the remote thing is that you can just work at any time and any place.
Yeah.
Because I do that with private architecture clients that I get who want me to design an extension for them or whatever. The way I work, because I'm a bit of a night owl, in the corporate world or in the architecture world, I would look unproductive because they'd be like, Lazo, why are you doing this at 4 a.m? Or more importantly, why are you in the office?
Yeah.
Whereas because I work for myself, I can just, I don't know, spend the day, record a podcast with Grace, and then do my work after midnight if I wanted to. Do you know what I mean?
And I think you're so right. So for me, I sleep a lot. Sleep is really important. If I don't sleep well, I'm a horrible person and no one wants to be around me. And so I will happily wake up at 9, 10 every day. And I'm so much more productive in the afternoon than I am in the morning. And so having that flexibility working for myself and not having to go into an office is so beneficial. So I can have a nice slow morning, make my porridge, mooch around, tidy my room, whatever it needs to be. And then from 12 till 12, I can work really hard, and that's when I'm most productive.
Yeah, I like that. And you can also arrange your client meetings around that, can't you? I really like that. I have this tangent. Bear with me, please. Some people are getting ready to judge me. You might agree, you might not agree. Girls that are 5'2" and below need a lot of sleep. I compare them to small supercars.
Yeah.
Where they need a whole load of petrol to not go that far. Do you know what I mean? And I think you're the type of girl probably sleeps like 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
Easy?
Easy. I slept for 14 hours the other day because I had I think 3 consecutive nights of about 8 hours and I was exhausted.
Wow, 8 hours?
Yeah.
Wow, I should take you into architecture. 8 hours is like, what's 8 hours? Nothing, mate. We do crazy hours in there. Do you know what it is? That is one difference I find with accounting, because a lot of my friends are accountants, so 2 of them. And even when I was at uni with them, right, they just had a different lifestyle to me.
Yeah.
Like, they would wake up a bit earlier. They would think I was weird for being awake at 5 a.m. And I also never understood what the lines were. But I never understood what all these numbers were. And I would just say, why can't you use a calculator or an AI system? Yeah. We come from 2 different worlds. And we've had a little clash in the middle through podcasting.
Exactly.
And we will tell everyone about your upcoming podcast at the end.
Oh, that's
but
fine.
let's tease that for later. Now, on a more serious note, as a girl in the financial or in the corporate world, you've talked about challenges, and I've seen you post about your challenges. Have you got any stories or examples, anything you would like to...
How long do we have?
As long as you want.
I'll keep it short. So I think definitely being a young female in finance is difficult anyway. It's difficult in corporate as well. And it's very difficult being self-employed. So for me, when I go to networking events, I will get mistaken for people's PAs, girlfriends. They'll say, who do you work for? And I go, myself. And they go, oh, really?
Or maybe they think it's a joke or something.
Yeah, and I go, yeah, no, it's me. Or I went to go do a talk at an event the other day, and they were like, oh, are you here for the event? And I was like, yeah, I'm speaking. I'm the event. And they were like, oh, okay. And it's stuff like that just makes me feel a bit weird. Especially on TikTok that I've already glossed over. It is the fact that I'm female. If you go in the comments, it's all young males being like, you're a female, you can't do this, you're too young, you don't have enough experience, it's daddy's money, it's this, it's that, it's OnlyFans. And I go, it's absolutely none of the above. But thank you so much for your lovely input, and you're boosting my posts because you're commenting. Yeah,
they do actually. It does add to the algorithm. Now, I would say, well, I don't know what to say. Where do these young men get it from?
Don't ask me.
No, I understand, but societally. So when me and you look at the society we live in,
yeah,
where do those norms and values come from? Why is it so easy to poke fun at a young woman for being a businesswoman?
I think it's because it's not normal. And so anything that's a bit different or not normal, people like to call it out. And especially on social media, because they don't have to do it in person, they can sit behind the safety of their screen and share their opinions, whether it be positive or negative on any topic whatsoever. Whereas if you do it in person, I'm there to sort of chat back.
Grace will clap back. But I noticed this with one of the clips that I posted for the Culture Clash episode, which was revolving around cultural identity and racism to an extent. And there was a whole fight, honestly, that broke out in the TikTok comments. There was well over 80 comments. I couldn't understand where half of them were going. But social media is a strange place. My solution for it personally, so it's not a popular opinion, but I think if me and you sign up for a TikTok account or an Instagram account, then we not only give our name and date of birth, but actually our ID. So then if I am racist towards somebody, or if I do say something inappropriate, I can get called out on it.
Yeah.
Whereas, like you said, people have these burner accounts that follows 1,000 people with 0 following, with a random picture that you know is not
User
themselves.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
What the hell is even that? Like that should just be banned. I almost think sometimes the social media companies allow for it to happen because there is a niche in there for these trolls.
But it's also the fact that it's like freedom of speech, which is very important to people. So people should be allowed to say whatever they'd like.
How free should your speech be?
That's a very difficult conversation.
That is a difficult conversation, and it's not one for today. And maybe we will do a podcast on it. But so how do you combat the challenges of people trying to judge you for being a girl? Aside from just being successful and continuous in what you're
without
doing.
just being Grace Hardy.
The camera just picked up on that.
I think it's actually just caring less. I think people care too much, and it's definitely a piece of advice I would give to my younger self is care less what people think. So before I started putting my face on social media, I go to therapy on a regular basis, and I was like to my therapist, I don't know why I can't do it. And she was like, come on, marinate in it, sit in it, what do you think is the issue? And I was like, I think the issue is I don't want people I know seeing it. I don't really care about strangers, bizarrely. But, like, I remember someone from my old work liked one of my TikToks, and then I got really shy and, like, in my head, and I was like, oh my God, they've seen one of my TikToks, oh my God.
Shy as in embarrassed?
Yeah, as in embarrassed. And so it's like Gemma from school. That's who I'm most afraid who will see my social media. And it's Gemma from school's opinion that matters to me most, which is really bizarre. And so then I was like, actually, I don't really care what Gemma thinks. Why is she being a barrier to my success? And then you care less, and then you post more, and you think and post more freely because that barrier isn't in the way anymore.
Also, you've kind of overthought it because if we take that example, she's just liked your video.
Yeah.
She hasn't commented, she hasn't been negative.
No. I don't know what her thought process is. Yeah. So it's really bizarre. It's people that I know. But you just get over it. And it's like those comments that those males, whatever they are, post on my TikTok that are negative don't affect me because they don't know me personally. I think Tom Holland said, if you don't have my number, then you can't have a problem with me because you don't know me well enough. And that's what I keep in my head all the time. These people don't know anything about me. 9 times out of 10, it's probably just coming from a place of jealousy. And that's okay, but they don't need to project on me. That's not my problem.
Or maybe just someone with too much time on their hands.
Yeah, go start a business, because then you won't have any time.
She's right. She's actually right. What is time, Grace?
I don't know.
I have no concept of time. I could not tell you what day it is, okay? I'm lying. I could today because I knew Grace was due here from London. Again, thank you for coming down. But yeah, honestly, you're right. And here's one tip I would also give to everybody. When you feel some type of way, underconfident, maybe anxious, I think in your case you were just anxious. When you start doing, you don't have time to be anxious.
No.
When your clients need their finances sorted by Monday, Grace doesn't really have time to sit down and say, I care about what this person thinks from high school, and it's Sunday evening, and I'm not going to do the work. Forget the paid client. And you see all the beauty from the hard work, which could be the money or the success that comes in. And once that first domino falls, which tends to be the biggest and the heaviest one, everything else tends to follow. Yeah,
I think starting is always the hardest thing with everything in life. And then once you start, it becomes easier.
Because you break the fear, and B, you get very consistent.
Yeah.
But talking about things that are hard, living in the UK right now is hard.
Yes.
Why?
So many reasons. Cost of living.
Of course, but as a financial expert, what do you think are actually the main effects?
I think the fact that salaries haven't risen with inflation, that there's been so many pay freezes, and that houses have gone up, again, not in line with salaries, and so it's becoming harder and harder. And because people can't buy, then they're renting, but because there's such a demand on renting, the price is going up.
I met someone a month ago who told me their rent in a very average area in Manchester for a 2-bedroom house was £1,500 a month.
Do you know what? And that is just, I think that's £400 more expensive than I pay for a room in London.
But a room?
Yeah.
I don't know the give and take here, because full house, room, London, Manchester. Which do you prefer, by the way?
So I wanted to move up to Manchester. So for 1.3, I realised I could rent a 1-bed, 1-bathroom apartment in Manchester with a co-working space and a gym and a sauna and a pool. And I was like, what?
That is really nice.
Lovely, really nice. And in London, it's like £1,000 for a room in a shared house. And I was like, what do I do? But so much of my work is in London. So many events are in London. The amount of money I'd save living in Manchester, I would pay in travel.
Could that not just be written off as an expense at the end of the year?
It can, but that's only at the end of the year.
Right, now I understand what you're trying to say. And I suppose in some ways you can't quantify how much money those events are making you.
Yeah.
Because there's no way to foresee who you're going to meet, who your next client could potentially be. Although it is clearly cheaper to live in Manchester, it could be more profitable to live in London.
Exactly, and it's just the ease for me. So I can get invited to an event on the day. Or I could have someone go, oh, a space has opened up. Can you be here in 2 hours? And I can go, yes, because I can get there in half an hour. Whereas if I was in Manchester, I'd be like, oh my God, I can drive there in 5 hours, or I can be there in 3 hours on the train, if the trains are even working.
Yeah, tell me about it. And a lot of strikes on the trains as well.
Yeah.
Housing, so we talked about things rising or not rising with inflation. Again, I'm not that financially literate as yourself. When was the last time housing prices actually did go up with wages? It always seems to me that...
I couldn't give you a year, but a very long time ago. So my grandma bought her first house for £2,000.
£2,000?
Yeah.
Two?
I was like, if that was today, I'd be like one of those property moguls with like a nice portfolio. And I think my mum bought her second or third house for maybe 100 to 200k, like a big house.
Like a really nice big house that she could raise the children in?
Like 4 bedrooms.
That's mad. And we're out here renting £1,000 for like a room in London or 1 or 2 bedrooms in Manchester.
It's literally ridiculous.
So I have an opinion on mortgages. I think they're horrible for 2 reasons. Now, Adil always tells me, the mortgage advisor, he always tells me like, look, it's still cheaper than renting.
Yeah.
And it is an asset that you could remortgage and refinance, that type of stuff. So I get it. But I think 2 things are really horrible about mortgages. Firstly, how long the terms are.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, the amount you actually overpay. So these are rough terms, but relatively accurate. If I want to mortgage a home that's worth 200 grand, chances are by the end of my 30 or 40 year period, I am paying double at least. Make that make sense?
Nothing makes sense. So I was looking for a place a couple of months ago to live, okay? And I was like, London's really quite expensive. Had a bit of a bit of a mental breakdown. I was like, renting is so expensive. And for me, yes, it's the ease of access of getting into London, but technically all that money is being given to someone else. At the end of the day, it's not investing in my future. I don't hold an asset, anything like that. I was like, I could get a mortgage and pay less. And I thought, my mind was blown. I was like, I could get an actual mortgage for a 1-bed, 1-bathroom flat, and I could live there and have an asset and pay less than I would pay in London for a room. And that just doesn't make any sense.
2 points. The first one being, when you have a lot going on in London, central London or whatever, are there areas on the outskirts that people can live that will be a bit cheaper?
Yeah, so people live in Kent or Essex, places like that, which are really easy to get into, and Reading as well, because the Elizabeth line goes there as well. So there are places to live on the outskirts that are really easy. But for me, it was like, well, I either live in London or I just don't live there at all.
Nice. Is it anything to do with how lively it is, or is it just business?
I think it's mostly just business. And now I've created a network there. And I was like, if I move to Manchester, I have to go through the whole process again of going to all these networking events and finding people in my area. Whereas I've made such a hub in London that I've only been there 6 months. So it'd be such a shame to sort of wipe it all out and move to a new city.
Yeah, I mean, London by far, when it comes to these things, is top tier.
Yeah.
I often get advised to do more podcasts in London, and I'll be honest with you guys, my listeners know, our viewers, I've flown to Paris, I have driven to Hastings and Brighton, but I refuse to go to London.
Why?
I don't like the underground.
Oh, I saw a thing the other day that like 20 minutes in the Northern Line is the same as like having a packet of cigarettes or something ridiculous because it's so bad for you.
The last time I was in London was, I think, last summer, and it was quite warm. So firstly, that's horrible.
That's awful.
Secondly, I don't know the names of the lines like you, but some of them, Grace, were so loud that I felt like I was operating heavy machinery. And I feel like if I was on site, there'd be warning sign, please wear something to cover your ears.
Yeah, it can get quite noisy and sweaty.
This is what I'm trying to say. Like, you know, you said, why don't you like going to London to record podcasts? For this reason.
Get an Uber.
And then the traffic is horrible. So there's like, should I fly around in London? Like, if I'm rich enough one day, should I have a helicopter going from building to building? Like, I don't really know. I love the city. And if I could teleport, I'd live there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, if I could teleport around everywhere. But getting around in London, and maybe this is someone that just doesn't live there, getting around in London is horrid.
It's not that bad if you don't do it in rush hour and it's not boiling. It's actually quite fine. Because you can also get Lime bikes and things like that, and e-scooters, and cycle around, which really isn't that bad.
Okay. I don't like cycling.
I've never cycled. I just see a lot of people do it. But also what scares me, tangent, is the fact that when you get a Lime bike, there's no helmet.
Shouldn't that be... I mean, I don't wear helmets, but should that be illegal? Like, should that be legal? Like,
I don't think there necessarily should be a law on it, but it's more just a health and safety thing. My mum's a nurse, and so the amount of like head injuries she's seen because people come off bicycles and they're not wearing a helmet, and a helmet is there to protect you. Random
question. In London, is it safer or less safe to ride a bike? And it's hypothetical because neither of us...
Yeah, I don't ride bikes, so I couldn't tell you, but it does scare me.
Let me set the scenario up. There's more traffic, so you're less likely to hit a fast car, but there's more cars. So
there's also
safe.
Buses.
There's buses everywhere.
Yeah, but there's a lot of buses in London.
In London, I like them. They're fancy and red.
They're not fancy.
Yeah, the last time I was on a bus in London was over a decade ago. I do think the London Underground itself is fast, and if you can navigate your way around, it's great. It's just, I suppose, for someone who's used to Manchester and a lot of Liverpool. I love Liverpool and I've lived there for the past 2 years. I only moved back like 6 weeks ago. I just can't get used to London like that. Not on a permanent basis. I'm sure I could one day, but I don't know.
Wait and see.
Where would you like to move to, by the way? I know you said Bali, but if you actually move somewhere permanently and just run your business, where would it be? Would it be Bali?
Be Spain.
Spain. Whereabouts in Spain? That's a big country.
I spent a lot of time when I was growing up in Mallorca, so it holds a very special place in my heart, so I would love to go back.
I'd love to go to the Middle East. I'm from there, I'm Kurdish, and I'd just love to maybe just hang around the Emirates. Something like...
Everyone keeps telling me to go to Dubai. I don't really want to go to Dubai.
My advice would be that Dubai's become so... how do I put this, touristy, that when you get into Dubai, do yourself a favour and go to where all the locals go. One thing I always say to people when they're on holiday is, don't let Google tell you where to go. If you're running low on ideas, try to find a friendly looking local who can point you towards this nice little restaurant that's not in the main street, but probably has the best food in the city.
Yeah.
Like, I've been to Paris 3 times, and the first time I went, me and my friend, we deliberately got lost there. So I was like, his name was Muhammad. I was like, Muhammad, phones in your pocket, and we'll just keep walking. Worst case scenario, at the end of the next hour or two, we'll make our way back to our hotel. I get it. But let's try get lost and see what we have. And we came across the most amazing food, get the most amazing people, and it just feels so different. It's like, how do I put this? I'm from Manchester. If you come to Manchester, it's going to say go to A, B, and C. But if you came to Manchester and I showed you around, I'd show you a different side.
Yeah, it's so true.
And so Dubai especially, don't go where they keep telling you to go. Don't hang around the Burj Khalifa, which is rammed with people. It's probably the only place busier than London Underground. And there's like no nice angles for pictures or whatever. Like, just go to where the locals go and enjoy yourself. That's what I would say. But yeah, so are me and you both moving out of this country because of how hard it is getting?
Maybe. I just want some sun. That is the main reason I would leave.
Yeah. I feel that. I genuinely feel that. And I think it also affects, the lack of sun affects your mental health.
Massively.
Which is a great segue into dyslexia and mental health, because I know you have a lot to say about that.
So much. So I was diagnosed with dyslexia when I was in primary school. So from a very early age, I knew that reading, writing, even speaking is something that I find really quite difficult to do. And it really set me back in school. So school for me was taught in a way that I didn't learn very well. And so it was up to me to find a style where I could teach myself. And that is basically how I got through school. And it was very difficult and very challenging and not a very happy time of my life. But when I left and went into corporate, there were things in place that I could have that made my life easier. And now being a business owner, I can have different softwares and learn in a way that works for me, which is so, so nice.
You know what's strange? So the accounting world is the corporate world, right? And so is a lot of other fields of academia. You eventually end up in the corporate world.
Yeah.
But like you've just said, a lot of what prepares you for the corporate world, I know you did an apprenticeship, but even generally, academically speaking, a lot of what's supposed to prepare you for the corporate world, it doesn't.
No.
Like, when did school just fall behind and not catch up with the times? What's going on with the academic system?
So school hasn't really changed since the industrial revolution, where we were made to be workers. So we go through school. And this is what upsets me about entrepreneurship, is the fact that it's not even taught in school. So when you go to school, you're taught to be the same as everyone else and learn the same way as everyone else, etc., etc. And you get to the point where you've all become basically the same person with a couple of different interests, and then you decide to specialise in something and then eventually go to university or do an apprenticeship and then go into the real world and get a job. But when you're a business owner, you have to think outside of the box, you have to be creative, you have to think differently, and you can't be the same as someone else. For example, there are so many accountants in the UK. One person can pick any of those accountants. You have to make sure that you stand out from the crowd and have something different.
Wait, is that true though? Isn't there always a generic model that people follow?
In what sense?
In the sense that generically all phones, whether it's an iPhone or a Google phone or Android phone or whatever, has the same basic concept. It calls, it takes pictures,
Yeah, so like all accountants will offer mostly the same services,
right.
But you have to have a USP that makes you different. So when you market and you sell, people pick you instead of going to someone else.
No, I think that's more people like you that think outside the edge. I would actually bet and argue that about 70% of professionals out there in all fields are very generic. That's just been my experience. I think an accountant like yourself that is using her brand to bring in more clients or clients more based around your expertise, I think that's a bit different. I really wouldn't give, with all due respect, that many people that much credit. Like, the vast majority of podcasts are very, very similar. Someone might say that about me. You guys can say whatever you want, but I would like to think that I try my best to have that unique selling point, but then I don't see that from a lot of my fellow podcasters.
But that's because in schools, I believe that creativity is somewhat taken away from us.
Right.
And so, like, you know, when we're all kids and we play games and we can keep ourselves occupied for hours, we can't do that when we grow up, which is such a shame. My sister was so good at it. She could play by herself for hours. And I think probably by the age of 5, I couldn't do that anymore. 5, 6, because I didn't have that creativity in me. every person is different. Everyone has different levels of creativity. But I think sometimes school really dulls that down.
Or hinders it.
Yeah.
Because have you ever seen that famous illustration? And there's a tree. It's kind of like a classroom. There's a monkey. There's a goldfish. There's a row of animals. Okay, so there's a row of animals, guys. So let me spitball here. Monkey, goldfish, zebra, lion, whatever. And then underneath it said, if you judged every animal based on how well it could climb the tree, then the monkey would just be the best student.
Yeah.
So do you know what I mean?
Completely.
And or if you judged every animal based on how well it could swim, then the fish would always get top marks. This amazing animal example I'm giving is that...
It's a great example.
Yeah. Shout out to my animal example. School is like that. School does really hinder creativity. Your ability to be an individual.
Completely. And for me, with my dyslexia, it put a lot of barriers on me. I was told by teachers that I was stupid and that I was dumb. And so when you're told that...
In so many words or differently, like...
In a couple of different variations, but same thing.
Wow, that's horrible.
And so you put so many barriers on yourself already before you've even gone into the real world, because they've gone, well, you can't string a sentence together, you can't write well, so you should just probably stop doing that.
Yeah, it's a bit... Yeah.
And so by the time I was 18, I was like, well, I can't do X, Y, and Z because I've been told for so many years that I can't. And obviously, being a business owner, you have to do all those things all of the time. And so when I started a business, I was like, well, I don't really know how to do this because I've been told that I can't write. So I put my website together. Yes, there were spelling mistakes on it, and my mum likes to text me when she finds one of them, which is actually very helpful because everyone's probably reading this going, this doesn't make any sense. My mum's gone, Grace, because is spelt wrong. Would you want to go fix that? And I'll go, yes, I'll go edit it now. Thanks for letting me know. But being self-employed, those barriers aren't on me anymore.
No, I get that. You know, the interesting thing about dyslexia is you can have different forms of it, right?
Yeah.
Different levels of it. So I know I have it, but do you know when I found out? Take a guess.
When?
At the end of my undergrad. And I then just had a moment where I was like, hold on a second. If I knew, or if some teachers had picked up on it, could I have had better grades? And then what would that have led to? There's a little like moment there and then, because it's an examination, right? And if you score over a certain amount, they refer you to a speech therapist or something. It's
different for different people.
It's weird. I think it's just a challenge that does not diminish anybody. I've always found it strange that they had sets in school. Yeah. I mean, I understand, don't get me wrong, there's always a hierarchy. But kids that were in the lower sets always suffered.
Yeah.
And sometimes success is psychological. And if you keep telling someone they're not going to do anything, then they might believe you.
Exactly.
Not everyone is going to be a Grace that says, yeah, well, who cares? I'm still going to open a business at 21.
But that's fine. But when I was younger, I did believe those things that were told to me.
But you came out of it early enough that it hasn't hindered it's not going to hinder your life as an adult. But there are a lot of people, and we might even know some of them personally, that just because of a few opinions of some teachers, some mediocre teachers, they feel like they can't achieve things in life.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. I'm sorry, I don't like that. I've never been a fan of the education system.
No, I think it's flawed in a lot of ways. For me personally, the main flaw I see is that we're not taught financial education in school. That's my big thing.
You would say that, wouldn't you?
I would say that because, again, as I've said, if I didn't work in finance, I wouldn't know anything that I know now. And finance is such a key foundation in everyone's life. Everyone has to know about it in some form or another. But if we're not taught about it at all at school, how are we meant to learn?
Yes, and I think it's now more appropriate than ever with the financial difficulties that we all face, regardless of what age you are. I mean, I feel like the whole of the UK, or the vast majority of UK, is at one point is complaining about their wage slip. And I think if maybe some people were financially a bit more literate, like you're saying, they would maybe manage a bit better.
Yeah, and I think it's just having an understanding. It's stuff like buy now, pay later is actually such a dark spiral that people don't realise because the branding is so colourful. And it's like, okay, you might not be able to afford this now, but you can afford 20 quid a month. Therefore, you can do buy now, pay later. But you still owe money and interest. And if you don't pay it, then there are repercussions and it affects things like your credit score.
So to your point, buy now, pay later, and you mentioned colours. See, it's psychological.
Yeah.
Because different colours are more welcoming than others, and all of a sudden this big line of buy now, pay later, pink for Kalana or light blue for ClearPay, it's inviting.
It is, and it's light and it's airy and it's fun.
Yeah. Okay, let's push the narrative. It's not a bad thing. There's no interest on it. Why?
There is interest on it.
Is there?
Yeah. If you pay late, there is interest on it.
Oh, okay. So I'm assuming people behave themselves and don't pay late, and you're saying that's not true. Right, so it is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because then something that costs £80 could easily cost you 85 and above.
Completely.
I think buy now, pay later is a smart way to get people spending money they don't have.
Correct.
You got to give it up to these people sometimes, man. Like, marketing-wise, they've hit the nail on the head. Like, did you know, by the way, that the idea of owning a home and having a mortgage is not as common in a lot of countries as it is in the UK and America?
Really?
It's much more of a Britain and America thing. And a lot of places all over Europe, people are just happy to rent.
Yeah.
I know that in the Middle East, a lot of people have ownership. But my point is that oftentimes narratives can be spun by companies, banks, or whoever, and they can almost manipulate the way people live their lives. Just like how they told everybody that, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, when that's questionable. It's not always true, and also depends what you have for breakfast.
Yeah.
I prefer to do my little intermittent fasting thing.
I need breakfast, but it's more like brunch because I wake up late anyway.
Yeah, brunch is the one. Brunch is the greatest thing ever. It's like a mix of lunch and breakfast. So you can have pancakes, you can have
avocado on toast.
Yeah.
I had a really nice breakfast burrito the other day.
Nice.
Yeah.
What was it?
I couldn't tell you, but it was absolutely delicious.
Wait, why couldn't you tell me?
I think it had avocado, eggs, sausage, tomato, salsa. Like, it was incredible.
That is like a mix and match at its finest. Nice. I like that. Grace Hardy, breakfast recipes, coming soon. So, 5 money rules: avoid debt, emergency fund, invest, multiple incomes, live below means. Number 5 by far is the most catching one to me.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to be, and we just talked about buy now, pay later. It's very easy to get caught up in the glitz and glamour.
Yeah.
It's very easy to try and overreach for something.
Completely.
Ambition is great, but to what extent, right? And what is it you're being ambitious for? So, what would your advice be? Because it's one of your 5 rules, but what is your advice for to have people live below or within their means? How do they actually do that? I know it sounds like an obvious question.
So it goes back to budgeting and making sure that all those things are
in line. Is
your
rule 50, 30,
20? Yeah. And so it's also, if you are splashing out, it's actually looking at yourself and going, why am I splashing out? Am I trying to fit in with a friendship group? Am I doing too many work drinks? Am I spending too much on beers? You have to actually take a step back and look at what you are spending all this money on. And then from there, figure a plan out. It's not necessarily taking everything away. If you're going to the pub 5 times a week after work,
that's excessive.
It is excessive. And having 5 pints every time you go, it's saying, let me just go for 1 or 2 and I'll go 3 times a week instead of 5.
Yeah.
But it's not restricting your lifestyle. It's just making small, meaningful changes.
Yeah, also, it can't be healthy to drink that much.
I personally don't drink, so...
No, neither do I. Like, I don't drink either, but just on the basis of anything...
Yeah.
Too much of anything is bad, right?
Yeah, but
especially
it's also
alcohol.
like, look at people who buy designer clothes. That's a lot of money. If you look at really, really rich people, they actually just wear completely normal clothes.
Yeah, this is also very true. But I think the whole idea of, again, going back to marketing, is if we can make your favorite actor or musician wear our brand, then we are now shifting culture. right? And I almost feel like the overarching influence on society is often marketing.
Completely. So look at influencer marketing, for example.
Yeah.
So if an influencer with millions of followers goes and gets a certain drink or wears a certain clothing item that looks really nice, it will sell out.
And how quickly, well, actually, I was going to say how quickly times have changed, but actually not really, because back in the day, they might have just shown your favorite influencer in a newspaper, whereas now it's just on your phone and it's readily available.
Because people always want to live someone else's lifestyle.
Explain that.
So if you idolize someone and you want to be like them, if they're doing certain things or wearing certain clothes, you will want to copy so you can be closer to their lifestyle.
Is it because some of these people look like they're larger than life?
Potentially, it might be that you like the lifestyle that they have or the money that they have, or it could be literally anything that you see in them. And so if you can buy the same watch or the same t-shirt that they're wearing, you feel a bit closer to them and closer to their lifestyle that you want to live.
Sometimes it's also a bit of a scam, like watches, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Our favorite clothing brands often don't make very good watches, but they will still charge you a pretty penny for them. And when you don't know that, when you're just focused on that brand, you'll end up purchasing that very basic watch that has a premium on it because it has your favorite logo on it.
Yeah.
That's also something that someone educated me on just like last week, and I was like, oh, shit.
Well, do you know, okay, this is a bit bizarre, but I realised that when I was in my corporate job, I went to go do an inventory count of bananas, right? Bit weird, but stay with me.
I'm trying.
So I go to this warehouse full of bananas, okay? And then I was speaking to them about their like different customers, their different clients. Waitrose, Lidl, Asda, Tesco, Aldi.
Okay.
But it's all the same bananas. But they give them to all these different clients and they put different prices on them.
I knew that happened with clothing, but bananas?
Yeah.
Were you as shocked as me when you found out?
Yeah. I was like, what are Lidl and Waitrose bananas doing in the same warehouse?
And you're as certain as you can be that they were the same bananas?
Yeah.
That's just one big scam?
Mm-hmm. The banana scam.
That is... Grace Hardy is just giving me a podcast episode idea. And also, I can... Wait, no!
I don't know about any other fruits, but bananas, I'm certain on.
But do you understand why, like, in my head, that's just not making sense? Because, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of caught me off guard, you know? That is strange. Tell me that is strange. Wow. Any more? What? Wait, no. I can't be the only one that's caught off. The reason why I'm so caught off is you have 2 or 3 companies there that completely sell things at different prices.
Yeah.
And they have ways of marketing it.
Mm-hmm.
So some of them will say, well, our stuff is more fair trade, or...
Yeah.
But then that doesn't make sense, because the same bananas are fair trade here for £3 and they're £1 here, cheap and locally imported. Oh, that's just hilarious. Marketing at its finest. That's all I can say. But yeah, I'm glad you told that story. I didn't know where it was going, but now I do. How are you, though?
Good. You?
I am, but I ask because I know you've opened up on social media about the challenges of mental health that come from this.
Yes.
So that's why I ask, like, how are you?
So I definitely have ups and downs every week. So last week and the week before, my mental health was in a bin. It was terrible.
Depression pit.
Yes, love that word. And it was all very doom and gloom and negativity, and
so your depression pit.
Yeah, depression pit, doom and gloom, all very negative. But it's a lot of things. So as a woman, I have hormone cycles anyway.
Yeah.
28 days, ups and downs, ebbs and flows. But when you add stress and work on top of that, it can just all sort of amount, and then you cry. And that's how that works.
because women cry more readily, they often get rid of their problems a bit quicker. And they're also more open and social.
Yeah.
Men not only bottle things up, but they don't have that, what do you call it? That outlet of crying.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about tears, but it almost feels like as they're coming out of your body, they're literally taking the stress
less
out.
pressure inside you. It all
It's
just
like
gets built up.
hitting something.
Yeah, completely.
I don't know how violent you are when you're stressed. I'm hoping not very much.
No, I'm not a violent person.
But not violent in the sense that up in someone's face, but I mean, like, do you ever get the urge to hit a punching bag?
No, never.
So you're just not like that?
No.
Okay. Always glam.
When I'm sad or stressed, I'm just very quiet. I'm usually a very outgoing, chatty person, but when I'm stressed or upset, I am mute. And that's how someone knows.
So how did Grace go from being the young girl that was considered dyslexic and a bit quiet to this socially outgoing person starting a business at 21?
I genuinely think it was working in hospitality. So I was very sort of shy growing up. And as soon as I started working like my first job, I genuinely got more and more confident because working in hospitality is a difficult environment to work in when you're 16 years old. But you also have to ask a lot of questions and deal with a lot of difficult customers.
Yeah.
And a lot of new things that you've never done before. So from then, my confidence grew because I could then speak to anyone and I could ask people any sort of question because I'd done it for so long. And that is weirdly how I got my confidence.
So by exposing yourself to the thing that you were intimidated by, essentially you became a more confident
Exposure
person.
Therapy.
Exposure therapy, EP. That is brilliant. Okay. So, any final points? Anything that I might have missed? Anything that you would like to talk about a bit more?
No, I just think that young people starting businesses, I think, is such an important and great thing to happen.
Yeah.
And I feel like young people have so many amazing creative ideas. And society only gets better from innovation. And so starting businesses is so important. So if anyone is listening thinking, oh yeah, I've got a couple of business ideas, but I'm too scared to try them, just go for it because being young is the best time to start something.
Yeah, it's the best time to fail and fall on your face and enjoy it while you're doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like we live in a world of opportunities. There's an abundance of opportunities these days. I feel like never have we lived in a time where it's been so easy to go after what you want in life.
Yeah.
And I always tell people to take risks. I have this saying, I've probably believed it since I was 16, and it probably says a lot about where I am today. I don't know what life is about, but I will fight my doubts.
Yeah, poetic.
And that's it.
My mum brought me up with the saying, the worst thing someone can say is no. And that's very ingrained in me. So I always ask for things or ask for help because the worst someone is going to say is no. And I can live with that.
Oh, mate, so many of, just to use this as an example, so many of my best episodes have come from a simple message to a stranger, right? And this will no doubt be one of them. Just by reaching out and saying, I like your content. You've got a good story. Jump on the podcast.
Exactly.
Speaking of podcasts, tell everyone when yours is coming out or if it's out, where they can find it.
So my podcast is called The Unconventional Podcast, which is all about unconventional routes in life. So promoting things other than secondary school, sixth form, university, and promoting financial education because obviously I'm very passionate about it.
Oh, we couldn't
tell. No, I kept that one quiet. Yeah. And obviously helping people start their own businesses. So it is launching on the 27th of June.
Nice. Very nice. So the way my schedule is for like, I know when your podcast is coming out, you guys will all be hearing that after the 27th of June. However, you'll still know about it and it'll be on my Instagram story and stuff like that. But yeah, Grace, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for sending me a message on TikTok.
And thank you so much for driving down from London. Take care, everybody. Thank you. Like, share, subscribe, all the usual. And we'll see you on the next one.